Hellos, namaste, good morning, afternoon, evening and welcome to our channel Little Planet Blue, where we cover everything from lifestyle, to technology, to global economics, to car and gadget reviews, to crypto news and reviews. And today's topic is part of Planet Economics. This video is the second video of a series of videos that we will release over the course of the next couple of weeks. Because the topic that we are covering is going to affect each and every one of us across the globe in terms of our lives, jobs, how we do business and more. For folks who have not seen part 1, we would suggest you to please watch that video first, as that will help get a better understanding of this video and the content that follows. So, let's quickly refresh your memory on what we spoke about in the last video. The US is wanting to fend off efforts being made by the BRICS nations to create a reserve currency and as a result the creation of a new world order. The US has been taking stringent measures over the past year to counter this effort. And so, towards that end, the Fed, the US Federal Reserve, which is the central bank of US, for the better part of last year, has been raising interest rates. And this might seem like a measure to ease inflation, however, this in fact is a dual or triple-pronged effort. 1. To slow down de-dollarization efforts. 2. To slow down efforts to create the new reserve currency. 3. Simultaneously fend off crypto adoption. As crypto adoption has been gaining tremendous momentum over the past few years. Okay, as promised in our last video, it's time to help you understand all these 3 points in detail. Before we go further, smash that like button like a boss, leave a comment to make your voice heard, share the greatness with the world, join the squad by subscribing, and hit that notification bell. And select all to never miss a beat. Okay, coming back. So, with the Fed raising interest rates, what this means is that the US dollar's value is increasing. This strengthening aka value increase of the dollar is with respect to other world currencies. This despite the US indiscriminately printing US dollars over the past couple of decades, which has led to a massive devaluation of the dollar. And so ironically enough, while on the one hand the tightening of the US dollar by the Fed is raising its valuation against other currencies, countries across the globe realize that the intrinsic value of the dollar is on a huge decline. Okay, circling back to the current time where interest rates are being increased by the Fed. This has a big effect on the rest of the world as the US dollar is the reserve currency and has been officially been the reserve currency from 1944 onwards. A quick fact check, although unofficially, the US dollar has been acting in the reserve currency capacity from early 1900s. I digress. What this means is that whichever country across the globe internationally trades in commodities such as crude oil, natural gas, refined oil, food grains, gold, silver, precious metals, etc., which is almost the whole world, ends up trading in US dollars. This happens as the US dollar is a global reserve currency and is accepted as a standard measure of valuation across countries. And as a result of the Fed tightening the US dollar, all countries are now paying much higher prices for each of these commodities. Needless to say, which in turn helps the US economy. Now the second issue with these rate hikes is that almost all countries across the globe have an international monetary debt, and with the increase in US dollar valuations, all such countries need to pay back higher debt returns now, because their own currency valuation is lower in comparison to the US dollar, making it very difficult for all those nations to pay back their debt. Not to mention that the world has been reeling under much economic stress over the past 3+ years, thanks to the pandemic. A quick fact check, as per the World Bank, during the pandemic, almost all businesses took a hit in some form. And of the businesses that were shut down, 60% never reopened. I digress. Coming back to the higher US dollar valuation in conjunction with the aforementioned high cost of commodity prices is creating a big pressure on these nations and economies, causing them to either default or take longer to pay back their debts. And as a result, The slowing down of repayments by these countries is working as a countermeasure towards them joining the de-dollarization efforts being made by the BRICS bloc. On a side note, please watch the previous video to know more about the BRICS bloc. Now, with the US dollars tightening by the Fed, dollars are drying up from markets, as countries are not able to pay, or are now not wanting to pay high valuation for commodities. Hence lesser transactions are taking place in US dollars. And as a result, the US Fed is employing an interesting strategy, although, one that is not new, to offer special US dollar-related discounts to allied nations and strategic partners. This is a strategy to try to keep the US dollar afloat/in circulation, for longer and for it to retain its world reserve currency status. However, what is new, is that, for the first time, the allied nations are not biting into this strategy. Well, not so far at least. On the other hand, as we mentioned in our last video, a lot of the Latin American nations, East European nations, Asian nations and also Canada have been buying gold over the past few years. From what we last checked, it was to the tune of 52 to 54 metric tons in 2022. A quick fact check. India has been building its gold reserve for a very long time. In 2022 India bought 65 tons of gold, raising its gold reserve by 4.5% to a total of 787 tons. I digress. If you like this video, smash that like button. Drop a comment to be heard. Spread the awesomeness by sharing. Become a part of the tribe with a subscribe. And never miss a thing by hitting that notification bell. Okay, coming back. So buying and building up of all this gold reserve is another attempt by nations to distance themselves from USDs, as the whole world has started to realize that USD is losing its intrinsic value. Because the US Fed has been indiscriminately printing USDs from 2008 onwards. And most notably from 2020 onwards. And on March 15, 2020 the board released a statement that there was 0% cash reserve ratio requirement by banks. What that means, is that whatever amount has been deposited into banks by you or I, by corporates, or by HNI, etc., banks are not required to hold any of that deposited amount in its reserve, and they are allowed to use or to invest a 100% of all deposited amount. And if banks in the US have a zero cash reserve ratio, this can be replicated across any country and subsequently across any and all banks across the globe. And if you are thinking this is just a figment of our imagination and this will not happen within your countries and to your banks, let's help you understand the required cash reserve ratios that some of the nations mandate banks to hold currently. China's CRR in May 23 was 7.6%. France's CRR in May 23 was 1%. Germany's CRR in May 23 was 1%. India's CRR in May 23 was 4.5%. Japan's CRR in March 23 was 0.8%. Russia's CRR in May 23 was 4%. Hopefully, now you will realize what we mean to say, that this crisis is going to affect you, I, and everyone across the globe. And a part of the US debt rising to formidable levels is also the indiscriminate printing of the dollar. And currently the US economy has a debt of close to $32 trillion. A debt that is the biggest in the history of the world. And with the global shift taking place and the way nations are now moving away from US dollars, it is seeming increasingly difficult for the US government to tide over this massive debt. While the US government has been planning multiple ways of digging itself out of this debt crisis. One way that is in the process of implementation, is giving its citizens sleepless nights. This is the implementation of CBDCs. So, one would ask, what is CBDCs? CBDCs stand for Central Bank Digital Currency. This is digital currency rather than the physical cash. This brings us to the third point, that the constant increase in interest rates has led to some of the biggest bank failures within US, Silicon Valley Bank, Silvergate, Signature and First Republic Bank. This has also affected Europe's Credit Suisse Bank and Deutsche Bank. A quick fact check, Deutsche Bank had a ranking of 21st largest bank in 2021, and with the recent collapse, its ranking fell and it is now ranked as the 27th largest in the world. Not to mention Germany was the first of the countries that declared a recession due to the ongoing crisis. I digress. Some would say that the failing of the US bank seems like a normal outcome of interest rate hikes. Although, we argue it's just too much of a coincidence. That all three banks that went down were involved 24/7 in crypto dealings. Namely buying of cryptos using fiat currencies and vice versa. Towards that end, Silvergate's SEN digital network and Signature Signet digital network were in direct business conflict with the upcoming US Fed's FedNow digital network. So, what are these digital networks? For that, we'll request you to tune into the next part of this series, where we will discuss how this banking crisis, which is leading to an imminent global recession, and the upcoming AI revolution will cause a perfect storm of global economic crisis, where massive number of jobs and a whole lot of businesses will be wiped out. And countries like India, China, Brazil, Bangladesh, Bulgaria and Hungary and other such countries that have affordable labor advantage, will lose that advantage to the upcoming robotics and AI revolution. This brings us to the end of this video. If you liked the video, give it some love by liking, drop a comment to let us know your thoughts, share the magic with others, join the community with a subscribe, and stay tuned with that notification bell. Stay tuned for the next video on Little Planet Blue. For now, we wish you the best and take care.